Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Kate, and this is my house in Germantown, New York. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I am Kate Wood, and I am a historic rehabilitation strategist, which means that I work with homeowners and designers and their teams, all kinds of trades, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, to plan and perform beautiful historic preservation projects. We rescue and reimagine properties with historic character for the 21st century. So we are in a circa 1800 home in the Hudson Valley in Germantown, New York. It was built 225 years ago originally, and it was expanded over time. There are additions, but we are in the historic core right now, and this is one of my favorite places in the whole world. I feel very deeply connected with it because we bought it when it was essentially abandoned, and a lot of people knew it as the sweet little house on the curve of the road as it goes into the downtown of Germantown, but it just had this forlorn air about it, but you could look at it and realize that it was incredibly old, incredibly special, and when we came inside, we could see through all of the neglect and the deterioration, and we knew that it was truly special. And so what we did was we did a historic rehabilitation plan for it. We got it listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and we were able to work with a great team of carpenters and plumbers and electricians and all kinds of special historic trades to bring it back and to give it new life in the 21st century and make it into a really special family home. So welcome to the living room. What is interesting about this space, so this is the original circa 1800 part of the house. It has changed over time, so this is definitely not what it looked like circa 1800, but when we bought this house, the walls were covered with, that 1970s faux wood paneling, but underneath, when we peeled it back, was the original plaster. So we restored the plaster. These beams were exposed. There had been sheetrock that had infilled the spaces, so we peeled that back. And what we're looking at is actually the underside of the upstairs floor, and then these beams, which are part of the structure of the house. So these are not decorative beams. They're cased with a decorative wood, but they are structural. Since the ceiling is so low, people were telling me, paint it white, make it disappear. But actually I wanted to go the opposite direction. I wanted to go dark because I really loved the moodiness of this space, the intimacy and the coziness of it. But my concession to trying to reflect light was doing the high gloss ceiling, which I think really turned out well. The staircase illustrates a few things. This is not the original staircase. This staircase was probably added in the mid-19th century. This is not where the staircase was. In fact, when we looked underneath the staircase, we could see the outline of what was originally a hearth. So imagine here a big fireplace. So this would have been the primary living space for the house in the early 19th century. And also when we opened up the ceiling upstairs, you could see where the chimney exited through the roof. So we know that the fireplace was originally here. But, this speaks to another era of the house. And something that we decided to do with color in this house is whenever we would peel back layers, scrape down door frames, take down paneling, we would find layers of paint. And those colors really inspired us, and we felt like those colors were so much part of the character of this house that we wanted to recreate them in different kind of fun patterns. So this blue was a layer that we found, the salmon pink was a layer that was here, And so, when I was looking at this house and just thinking about what the color scheme should be, I thought, well, the color scheme's already here. It's just a matter of, where do you deploy those different colors? We can also look at, I mentioned that the floorboards are incredibly wide in this house. So that is because, in the early 19th century, it was still possible to get trees that were really old growth. So they would be, really thick, and then you could mill them down into these wide board floors. They're very humble. They were not supposed to be decorative. We love them today because they have that kind of patina of age and history, but they were just the wood that you used for floorboards back then. But so we definitely wanted to preserve those, and even all the nicks and dents and splintery parts, we kept all that too. Whenever I look at an old house, I start by identifying what's worth preserving. What are the character defining features that no matter what else we do, we want to make sure that they are preserved. So when I looked at this house, I love the fact that it had historic wood windows. It has these cased beams in the ceiling, and there were so many layers, and so as we were peeling them back, we decided which layers were at the end of their lifespan and needed to be removed, and which layers really spoke to the history and the evolution of the house. So those are the ones we kept. So when we walk around, you can see the cracks in the paint that show that there are many, many layers. You can see where we stripped down woodwork and exposed all those different layers from the different colors that it was painted over time. The floors, some of the floorboards in this house are 18 inches wide. So those are incredibly old floorboards, and we wanted to bring out the character of those floorboards. But then when it came to the kitchen, for example, we did a totally modern kitchen. The bathrooms, what we love to do is we go to salvage warehouses and we find old clawfoot tubs and pedestal sinks and sconces, and we like to bring those back, so that because a house like this never would have had indoor plumbing originally, so it makes sense that the bathroom, the kitchens, those parts of the house show different eras in its history. And our job, as we see it, is to bring out those different chapters in its history and to let it continue to speak and evolve as we live in it. I keep saying the word layers, but that's so much a part of what historic rehabilitation is to me. It's about marrying the beautiful parts of the past so this really speaks to what I mean when I say historic rehabilitation. So this is not restoration. Circa 1800, they never would have left all of these different layers of paint exposed. But over time, as tastes change, you can see the different colors. You can see the battleship gray, the kind of hunter green, the mustard yellow. Those just talk about, all the different periods and the different people who lived in this house. And when we scraped it back, we just loved the look of all of these layers. And so we kept that. We did put a clear coat over it. Probably there's some lead paint underneath that, but it's all encapsulated now. But I think this is the kind of finish that you could pay somebody a lot of money to recreate that. And we had it here. And again, it gives us inspiration for the different colors that we brought back through the paint and the furnishings in the house. A really special feature from the history of this house is this front door. It's not original, but it was added probably in the late 19th, early 20th century. And you see doors like this everywhere. So you see this plate here that says B. Muller. I looked back in the deeds, and that was actually Bessie Muller, and she lived here, a single woman, in the 1940s and 50s until she got married in her 70s, and I have a picture of her at her wedding, and then she sold the house. But to me, in part, this will always be B. Muller's house. So probably the boldest move in here was the sectional sofa, which is definitely not a period piece. It's something that I bought off of Cherish, and I took a chance on the color, and the color turned out to be perfect. So it matches that mustard yellow layer that we found in the house. But that makes that corner very functional. These chairs I had actually bought for my lobby in the building I live in New York City, when we were doing a lobby restoration project. They never quite worked there, but I brought them here, and I love the fact that they're light, they're modern, we can move them around depending on how we want to set this room up. A lot of the furniture, the antique pieces, came from my friends at Quittner Home. They are local here in Germantown, and they not only have an amazing eye for antiques, but they also do historically informed lighting and other home goods. So you'll see some of those things throughout the house, because they have been incredible collaborators in decorating this house. I love these swivel chairs. I found these at the architecture. Actually, I found these in the Antiques Warehouse in Hudson. They're probably from the 1980s. They had this really great kind of beige plaid upholstery on them. But I thought, again, they would be really functional in this room, because you can orient them however you want, however the conversation is, you can move them around. And then I had them reupholstered by an amazing local upholsterer that I love to work with, and he's terrific. I mean, that's what I love about the Hudson Valley, is you have access to all of these incredible trades and artisans who create beautiful things. So it really isn't hard to pull together a really interesting interior up here. So again, another Quittner Home find. They sourced these for me, and I think it was the color more than anything that I loved, and just the scale of them, but they're signs of the zodiac. And so they're just fun. All right, let's head over to the dining room. Follow me. I would have to say that my favorite space in this house is the dining room. And the dining room is part of an addition that was added probably in the 1860s. So it's not as old as the original part of the house, but it's very interesting the way that it was added on. It's almost like a lean-to, so it's on a different level, so you have to step down into it. And when you do, this whole other space opens up, and it's just full of light. The ceilings are higher in the newer part of the house. You know, it's just a great place to gather with friends. That's what we love using this house for, is bringing people together, having guests, having dinners, and you know, we light the fire and the stove, or in the summer we just open up all the windows, and it's just a great place to be. All right, so before we head to the dining room, I just want to show you this spot. So where I am standing was actually the one and only bathroom in the house when we first bought it. So it's right off of the living room, and I'm standing in, you know, there was a bathtub right here. And when we took out the bathtub and gutted this space because we were putting a new bathroom upstairs, we found that this was probably the original connection point between the old part of the house and the newer part that was built in the mid-19th century. So that was a really exciting discovery, because behind the tile board in this bathroom was with these wide board panels, and you know, you've got this decorative bead, all of these layers of paint, even wallpaper on some of the beams in here. But it was a really exciting discovery. Okay, so let's go to the dining room. Okay, so here we are in the dining room. Again, one of my favorite places in the house, because I love it when people can gather in this room. It looks beautiful during the day. We're getting ready for a springtime feast in here. Again, we have been working with Quittner Home, and a lot of these things are pieces that they have produced for their store here in Germantown. And as I mentioned, this is not an original space for the house. It was an add-on in the middle of the 19th century. And we had peeled back the sheetrock that had been added, during the 20th century, and again found the original plaster. I mentioned that when we took the bathroom out, we found what looked like a step coming down into the space, so we added these steps here. We added a railing, which we had a local metal worker produce, and it's just steel, oiled steel, very modern, very minimalist, but we wanted it to declare itself as an addition from the 21st century. But you see that it's attached to this paneling here. This was another really exciting discovery behind the sheetrock. Another huge board here. This one's probably 20 inches wide with the decorative bead. And you can see all the different layers of paint, the nail holes from maybe some shelving that was put up here, even a layer of vintage wallpaper, all of which we kept. And one of the things that I just kind of shiver whenever I see it, and it makes me happy, is these initials that were carved in the wood right here. You can see the RH, and I don't know who RH was, but they're still here, so that makes me happy. One thing that I should mention is that we got this house listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and that made it eligible for historic rehabilitation tax credits. So that is a really great program where you can do it for both owner-occupied properties as well as commercial income-producing properties. So it makes you eligible for tax credits based on the amount of money that you spend on historic rehabilitation. So we did that program with this house, and it just meant that we needed to go through a review process with the state. And we had to show them what we were planning as far as the floor plan, the finishes, the fixtures. This was an antique fixture that we found at a nearby salvage warehouse. I believe this one came from Zaborski Emporium in Kingston, which is a favorite. It's where we get lots of bathtubs and sinks and all kinds of radiators, all kinds of beautiful things. So we picked that. And this corner cupboard over here is kind of a funny story, because I was working on a project for a client who we were rehabbing a 1940s house. So this was in her dining room, and she hated it. And I loved it because it's classic colonial revival, 20th century. You can see the Chippendale broken pediment top on it. I mean, this corner cabinet was in almost every house from the 19 teens on, but she didn't like it. So I thought, well, it would work here because this house, again, it's all about the evolution. Who's to say that someone in the 1920s or 30s wouldn't have wanted to put a cabinet in like this? And fortunately, it just fit with the ceiling height. So I am a big fan of historic wood windows. I believe that there are very few windows that can't be restored. In fact, I've never seen one that can't be restored. And when they are restored, they are way more beautiful and just as energy efficient as any modern window that you're going to buy off the shelf. And they will last forever because you can continue to repair and refresh them year after year after year. These are not original to the house. Well, they probably are late 19th century. This house has a whole assortment of different windows. There's 6/6 windows, which means, there's 6 lights. These are 2/2 windows, double hung with the pins that you pull out, and then you can set them to whatever height you want them to be open to. This is the hill that I will die on, preserving historic windows. So I love wood burning stoves. This one is one that we got secondhand, and it works beautifully. In fact, it gets really hot in this room when we have it going, but there's nothing that I love more than a dinner by the fire. So we get this going in the winter, and it just makes things really cheery. I mentioned that there was a bathroom that blocked off what we think was the original connection between the old part of the house and the new part. But it seems that at some point when that bathroom was installed, they created a new access point here. And it's very awkward. It's right at the bottom of the other staircase. And in fact, it was such an issue that someone at some point had put caution tape on the floor so that you wouldn't fall down both sets of stairs. So we covered over those stairs, but we wanted to keep them because, again, it's about the story and the layers. And here they are, still underneath here, still with the caution tape, and it's a good hiding place. So now I'm going to take you upstairs, but I want to point out as we go the paint on the stairs because, again, it evokes the different layers that we found in the house. But I had this really wonderful painter do a painted runner. I didn't want to put an actual carpet runner on it. I love the idea of doing a very precisely painted runner, and she was able to figure out all the geometry. I have no idea how, but she's amazing. So this house was originally built around 1800. We traced it back in the deeds, and we believe that based on the historical documentation and what we can read in the structure of this house, that it was originally built about 225 years ago. And it was very modest. This is not a grand house for rich people. This is what is referred to as a house for the middling people. So these were farmers. These were people who worked in the community, families that had been here already by 1800 for maybe a century or more. So this house is very much of this community, of this region in the Hudson Valley. It looks very modest from the outside. It's very humble, but if you look at the shape of the roof, if you look at the beams, if you can find those details that evoke the very early 19th century, and then you can see the way that it was expanded over time. And so, that way of telling the story, not just of the house, but of the community, we thought was really important. It's important that we preserve not just places that reflect the upper classes. When we look at houses, and when I say we, I mean my husband, my family, we have bought and rehabilitated several houses in this community, and we always focus on houses that otherwise might be lost, whose history might be forgotten. So we figure that the grand houses on the Hudson River or in the hills, the mansions from the old local aristocracy, that those houses will somehow be preserved. But it's these more modest houses that really are so much about it's these more modern houses that really make a difference in every community, because this house is so visible. It's right on the road. You can't miss it when you're coming or going from Germantown. So to see this house so dilapidated and so abandoned really brought the whole spirit of the place down. And so by rehabbing it and bringing it back and making it sort of an energetic part of the community again, we feel like we've done right by this house, and I think that it has really added something to the life of the place that we call home. So here we are upstairs. This was an area that we made more extensive changes because of the way that it had been broken up. There was not a bathroom up here. There were 2 bedrooms, but you had to walk through one bedroom to get to the other bedroom. Because this is an upstairs kind of secondary space, when we were working with the state on the historic rehabilitation tax credits, we had a lot more flexibility to reconfigure up here. And of course, we kept the newel post and the stair railing. We kept the historic windows. But what you see here, it's sheetrock, it's new, flat casing around the doors, the baseboard. We kept the historic floors, but we reconfigured the space so that we have this kind of sitting room, extra swing space that has a small bed that could be used as like a day bed, or maybe a child or a single adult sleeps up here adjacent to the main bedroom. So now we'll go into the main bedroom. So this house is what we would call a story and a half. So upstairs, you've got a little bit of wall, but then a lot of ceiling slope. We added this skylight. Before it felt very close, it felt very dark up here. And that skylight, which is on the back side of the house, not visible from the street, is a game changer up here. It brings so much light, and it has an automatic shade on it so that you can black out if you want to. I love waking up to the sun, so this is great for me. Again, another thing that we did, we kept the historic windows. We added the split unit to have air conditioning upstairs. Downstairs, we put radiant heat under all of the floors. So all of that heat rises up. We never have to heat upstairs, but in the summer we do use the air conditioning. Again, a lot of antique finds from our friends at Quitner. So now I will show you the bathroom that we added upstairs. So we carved out this corner. We had to navigate this sloping ceiling to get our floor plan. But again, we use salvage fixtures from our friends at Zaborski, the clawfoot tub, the pedestal sink, the sconce, and then they still make the reproduction shower for tubs like this. So we use that. So because we were changing the layout up here, we had to move around some of the doors. And in fact, we ended up with not enough doors. So we have even salvaged doors that we were able to find from different places. So the doors are all a little bit different, but some of them have their original hardware, this tiger eye porcelain knob here. So you can also find these reproduction online. You can reproduce this look. So this one's just a 2-panel door with, again, this beautiful tiger eye porcelain knob. In all of the house rehab projects that I do, I always recommend the old-fashioned push-button switches with the mother of pearl inlay. I just think they're so beautiful, and I love the way they sound, and you can also get them on dimmers. Well, I feel like I was born to be a preservationist. I discovered historic preservation, that it was actually a career path when I was a teenager. I literally felt like, okay, that's it. That's what I want to do with my life. I had spent my childhood traveling around in our family's Volkswagen bus, going from historic battlefield to house museum to national park to presidential library. So we traveled the entire country going to historic sites. And so it just felt like it was a normal part of life. And I grew up in a 1927 Tudor Revival style house in New Jersey. And we were always working on that house. I mean, you'd get up in the morning and you'd pick up a paintbrush and you'd paint your room. So I feel like that just felt like it was normal life. And so when I was able to decide on going to college and going to graduate school, I took a path of studying anthropology and archaeology, and then I studied historic preservation and urban planning at Columbia University. I went into community advocacy, fighting to preserve landmarks and historic districts on Manhattan's Upper West Side, and I did that for many, many years. And then I decided to take that sense of mission and advocacy and apply it to helping individual homeowners and giving them the kind of advice that, frankly, I wish I'd had when I was rehabbing my own house, which we bought a house in the Hudson Valley about 15 years ago. And again, an abandoned house that needed everything. You know, I felt like I could give back the lessons that I'd learned, my very extensive background and training in historic preservation. And when I work with people, it is very much a partnership. I am listening to what their needs are. This is about making houses function in the 21st century. And then they're listening to me. And what do I see when I look at their house? What do I see that's worth preserving? And then we come up with a vision together, and then we gather the team and we make it happen. So here we are in the kind of sitting room, swing, sleep space. I love this alcove here that is the perfect size for a twin bed. And it's a great place to just lie down in the afternoon and read, or you can sleep a child or an adult here. In fact, we've had friends stay here before who use this as an artist studio up here, and it works beautifully for that as well, because you've got this great light that comes in through these windows. Right now, this time of year, you can stand here and you can see through the trees to the Catskill Mountains. So to me, home is a relationship. You know, you're never done creating a home. It is ongoing. Sometimes it's love, sometimes it's hate, but you get up every day and you work on it. And to me, that is what home is really about. It's that give and take relationship that you have with a place.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.